Here's one that comes from Ian, I believe. How do you feel about those who say that the temple was located in the city of David and not on the current Temple Mount? A great question, because there are those who, I think the motive behind it is accommodation. Let me explain. There are those who want to say, no, the temple was never on Temple Mount. And the reason they want to say that, I think, has to do even with this interfaith dialogue, because they want to rebuild the temple where it belonged, and yet they can't do that if it's on the Temple Mount, so they begin to search, I think, for some other place to put it. Now, often some will say, well, the Dome of the Rock is actually right there, but the temple really was over here, so you could put the temple right next to the Dome of the Rock, and you would be okay. I think they're just trying to avoid a World War III is what they're trying to avoid. They're trying to avoid a political problem between Judaism and Islam. I think there's just way too much archaeological evidence. You can't misplace what is the most famous building of the world. And there's just solid archaeological evidence that, for example, that retaining wall that you see today, the Western Wall, was built by Herod. And that right there, you have they have discovered now the temple of, the Palace of David, just down the southern steps, right where it would have been, where David was king. And to say, now you mentioned the city of David. Let me help people understand. That there is the Temple Mount, then the southern steps, and there's a big slope down here because it's a mount, the southern steps, and then down at the bottom of the southern steps is what is called the City of David. It was the old part of the city prior to the establishment of the city. But remember that the temple, at David's time, the temple wasn't built, but he purchased the land, and he purchased it on the threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite. And that particular threshing floor of Araunah the Jebusite was outside of the city of David, and it would have been up the top of the hill. I just think there's too much textual evidence and too much archaeological evidence to say this, and you can even go back today. They have discovered even the little bells from the priests. There's just way too much archaeological evidence that has been discovered that says this was the place of the temple. So I would disregard that and put that aside. But great question.